Hello, stampers. This is Yana. Welcome back for another Hero Arts video. In this one, which is a part of the color layering series, we're taking a closer look at the color layering piece stamp set. Join me as I test several ink pad and embossing powder options and show you how to make simple, easy to mass produce holiday cards. Here's a quick look at this stamp set. It features a large word piece and a detail layer to create shadows and add interest to it. On the back of the packaging, as always, you have the layering guide that will show you how to layer your stamps and also a project example to help you jumpstart your creativity. The set also has a swirl decorative element which can be used to complete the stamping on the top and bottom, as well as some pretty stars. Of course, you also have other words and phrases to build your own sentiment, and they do give you several options. I'm going to begin by stamping Wishing You Peace and Love on white cardstock. This is Hero Arts Dove White. I'm using my Mini Misty stamping tool as I know I'll want to double stamp this. The ink pad that I'm using for this is Pool to Navy Ombre. If you've been a fan of the color layering videos for a while now, you know how much I love using my Hero Arts ombre ink pads for stamping these images. The ombre ink pads easily add another level of detail and interest to any solid image. With the sentiment stamped, and by the way, it's not finished yet, we will come back to it later, but for now I want to work on adding some images to the background around the sentiment. I'm going to use this beautiful layered poinsettia stamp set and stamp beautiful flowers around the sentiment, framing it in a way. I have previously shared a video tutorial focusing just on the poinsettia stamp set. If you'd like to check it out for some in-depth stamping tips, I have it linked right here in the cards. I'm using 3 colors of ink to stamp the flowers: soft pink, ultra pink, and crimson, as I'm going for a more pink look. I think the pink flowers are going to look especially gorgeous with that teal sentiment. The poinsettia is rather easy to align, and this stamp set gives you beautiful flowers for your projects in no time. There's also a coordinating die available for the poinsettias, but I'm not using it today as I'm stamping the flowers directly onto the background. There are also 2 leaf images that nestle in between the petals of the flowers, so no masking is needed. To stick to the teal and pink color palette, I'm using the same Pool to Navy Ombre ink pad to stamp the leaves next to the flowers to fill in some of the gaps in the background. I'm using the lighter blue color for the base and a mix of the 2 darker colors for the detail layer. I am overlapping the sentiment quite a bit with the flowers and leaves, and this is one of the reasons why we did not complete the sentiment right away. I knew I will be doing some overlap stamping, and I didn't want to overlap any heat embossing. So we're doing all of the background stamping first, and next we're going to complete the sentiment by adding an embossing layer over it. Okay, the stamping is now finished. I also added yellow flower centers using Butterbar ink pad. I did set my panel aside for a couple of minutes, and I also used my heat tool to dry the ink. This is a very important step, as our next step is heat embossing. Any wet ink on the panel will catch embossing powder, and we don't want that to happen. So make sure you dry your panel, either using a heat tool or let it air dry before moving to the next step. I've treated the panel with anti-static powder to eliminate any static and grease that I have on it, some leftover or transfer from my fingers that might catch the embossing powder particles. Next, I'm placing the top piece layer onto the panel, making sure to have it aligned. It is easy to align. I'm also repositioning the other parts of the sentiment as I want to heat emboss those as well, but I'm going to offset them just a little bit. I've inked up the images with clear embossing ink, and now I'm stamping them onto the paper, making sure to apply firm pressure to transfer the ink. Now I can add embossing powder. I've chosen to use silver glitter embossing powder as I think it will look especially gorgeous with a teal and pink. I typically like to go with gold, but this time I decided to challenge myself and use silver for a change. I did use gold on the other cards. It already looks beautiful. Next, I'm preheating my heat tool and going to use it to melt the powder and set it in place. I love that top layer on the word piece, and overall, I just can't get enough of the design itself. I think it's very pretty. I'm going to heat emboss the same images again to build up the embossing powder coverage on the panel, to add more shine and to add more sparkle. I'm simply repeating the same steps, and here's what the panel looks like now. The bold letter design allows us to double heat emboss the same image as no detail is being lost here due to that bold letter design. I've trimmed this panel to 4 by 5¼ inches, and now I'm adding it to a slightly larger panel cut from peony cardstock. And next, I'm adding it to an A2 card base made from Adriatic cardstock, and that finishes our first card. I also already made a second card using this stamp set in a similar technique. I stamped the word peace in ultra pink and added gold glitter embossing powder on top. The word sending was stamped in Butterbar ink. For the background, I used Hero Art's new Nordic Holiday Cling background stamp and heat embossed it in white on Arctic cardstock. I backed it with mustard and called the card done. I have one more card idea to show you using this stamp set. I'm starting by stamping the word peace in red royal ink on white cardstock. Next, I'm adding sending and love in forever green ink. I'm going for a classic red and green color combo. Now, I originally clear heat embossed the 2 green lines to add some shine, but later I re-stamped the same panel and skipped the embossing as that made the green color just a little bit too dark for my taste. Next, I stamped the swirl element as well as the top piece layer and then another swirl above the sentiment cluster. I covered all in gold embossing powder, just regular gold, no glitter this time, and heat set it to melt. To complete this card, I used one of new Hero Art's stencils, the poinsettia stencil, along with white modeling paste and cherry cardstock to create a simple yet classy background. I trimmed the sentiment panel at an angle and foam mounted it onto the card. Here's a quick look at all 3 cards I have for you today, created using the new color layering piece stamp set. I think I love the one with the poinsettias the most, with the pink poinsettias, but do let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite. I hope this video has given you some stamping ideas to try with your color layering stamp sets from Hero Arts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.